Are you ready to feel inspired by hearing other people's stories of how they got from point A to point B? What helped them? What challenged them? What did they learn? What might they know that you haven't yet explored? No matter where you are today on your life journey, there is always hope, and you will always be amazing. My name is Kim O'Neill, and this show will inspire you to keep going. You and your life are worth it.
You're listening to the Every Day is a New Day show. Inspirational conversations with movers and shakers about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. Because that which breaks us becomes a catalyst for what makes us. Now, here's your host, Kim O'Neill.
Before we get into today's show, I have a real quick announcement. My newest book, You Are Loved, an inspired meditative visual journey, became a #1 Amazon bestseller in April 2019. We have received rave reviews for this one-of-a-kind meditative experiential book that has 39 stunning original photos of Key West, Florida, taken by my co-author, and is paired up with a written guided meditation I wrote specifically to deliver this simple yet so important message: that you are loved. This book is a fantastic book for yourself, a loved one, and even as a coffee table book. We're also being told about the success and interest of people using this book with their kids and now introducing them to meditation. To read more about the book and purchase a copy directly through me, simply go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com. That's KIMONEILL coaching.com. Click on the You Are Loved book tab and then send me an email if you'd like to purchase a copy before they're sold out. And now, here's today's awesome guest interview. Today's special guest is Eleanor Rose. What you're going to find out today is that Eleanor is very much the down-to-earth girl next door, who unexpectedly found herself exploring a career path many of us would never dare do. Her story and her photos, however, are going to help paint the picture for you of how she got to the empowered place she's in today. Before we bring on Eleanor, here's a little bit more about her. At age 19, Eleanor Rose quit her job at a law firm to become a full-time nude model. She knew it would boost her confidence, but didn't expect the complete transformation that would ensue. Through her work as a nude model over the past 8 years, she has been able to let go of years of religious programming and childhood trauma and reclaim her body and her life, and thus the freedom to truly create her life on her own terms. Now she draws on that experience to help other women do the same. And now, here's Eleanor Rose. Welcome, Eleanor Rose. How are you?
Great, Kim. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Okay, so now first question off my mind, off the front of my mind is Eleanor Rose. Do you go by Eleanor Rose or just by Eleanor?
Eleanor's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's my bad then.
No, it's all fine.
So, okay, you have this fascinating background that I'm really excited to share with our audience today. And I know it goes way beyond that, but you do nude modeling and you also coach women and you do this empowerment work. And I would love to know, how did you get into nude modeling? What led you to that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's such an interesting story too, because it's not what anybody ever expects. I actually went on a mission trip with my church to Spain, and they decided that when we were in the area, we'd visit the Vatican.
Oh, this is exciting. I just love how this starts. From a mission trip with your church. Okay.
Yes. So it was a youth group mission trip. I was 17, and it was a non-denominational Christian church, but they figured, the Vatican, we're in the area, was how they put it, which I think is so funny because we were in Spain. And so they took us to Italy. We spent a few days there, saw all the holy sites, and we toured the Vatican. And this really funny thing happened in the Vatican where we get in there and it's like the group leaders weren't prepared for the art that we would find in the Vatican. It's like, oh shit, there's nudes everywhere. And so they rushed us through to the Sistine Chapel. We're like, crap, there's nudes here too. And we left. We were in line longer than we were in the Vatican.
Wow.
But in the meantime, I was the person who was lagging behind, who was like trying to stall and look at everything. And that art touched me. It moved me so deeply, because here I was seeing women depicted as strong and beautiful and confident in a way that I had never seen women depicted before in my life. And on top of that, these women were naked, but they weren't being shown as harlots or sluts or whores. They were still shown as strong and confident in their bodies. And these weren't just tiny, stick-thin, skinny women either. And so there were so many layers there. And at the time, I couldn't have told you why I loved this art so much. But on any level, I could not have expressed it. It was just, I went home and it stuck with me. Something very deep within me had been touched and moved by this art. And so I'd actually, around the time I was 15, 16, my mom had tried to get me into modeling. And so I'd done some trade for photo shoots, where just to build my portfolio, all clothes, nothing fancy. And it never really went anywhere. But so I come home from this mission trip. I go back to my job at the law firm, and something had changed in me. I was profoundly unhappy. I wasn't satisfied with the work I was doing anymore. And amusingly, the way this came out was I decided I needed to make more money. I was 17 and working at a law firm, still living with my parents. They were paying for everything. I did not need more money. But that was the excuse I was willing to give myself. So I sat down and I was like, okay, what's quick and easy money? Well, modeling. So I started doing modeling, just clothed on the side. And I had so much charge around the concepts of nudes and was so uncomfortable with how much I liked them at the time that my modeling bio actually had, I don't do nudes, I have morals, in all caps along the top.
No way.
Yeah. So that, and at the same time as I had that, I was looking at the portfolios of models who did do nudes, just awestruck. Every day I'm looking through their portfolios, admiring this art. And it was like, they can do this. It's okay for them. This is beautiful art. It's empowering for them, but I'm a good Christian girl. I don't get to do this. And so it was months and months of really struggling with it. And even talking to some of those models. And I was lucky enough to talk to one who actually was Christian and had spoken with her pastor and was able to balance Christianity and modeling, because at the time Christianity was still important to me. And so I got to a point where I was willing to try it. I set up a photo shoot with a female photographer who was in a photography class, wanted to do a nude shoot for her final. It would just be shared with her teacher and the class and nowhere else unless I okayed her to put it online.
Okay.
We shot mostly film, some digital, in a dingy old hotel room. It was truly terrifyingly disgusting.
Oh no.
She chose it. She wanted the white brick walls, and that was her only criteria. And as somebody who had to be barefoot and naked in that environment, maybe not the best location for a nude shoot, but the photos. I mean, first off, I just want to say, like, the shoot, I expected to be terrified, but it just felt freeing and right. And I was so excited to be there and making this art. And I had to wait a couple weeks to see the photos because she had to develop the silver gelatin prints. And I distinctly remember driving to her house to see these photos and looking at them. And I didn't recognize the woman in those photos because I still felt like a scared little girl. And I was looking at this strong, confident, beautiful woman. And something clicked in me. I thought I was just going to do it once and get it out of my system. And all of a sudden it was so clear, like, I didn't know who this woman in these photos was, but I knew that posing nude was my way to find her and become her. And I never stopped.
Wow, that's fascinating. So now, in that very first photo shoot, was your head shown? Was that any part of the stipulation?
Oh, no, my head was shown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, I really trusted this woman not to share the photos unless I said that she could.
Okay.
And for me, I truly respect models who choose to keep their face hidden and remain anonymous. But for me, because it was never about money or doing it as a career at the beginning, at least, that wasn't where I made my choices, because it was about having that experience, creating the art, mirroring what I'd seen in the Vatican and seen in all of these models and photographers' portfolios. I didn't want to limit myself. I wanted to be able to show up fully.
So what was it like when you decided to go beyond just that first photo shoot and actually do more and then open the doors for people to find out or see you? Like, what was that like?
It was really, really exciting for me to move forward and do more shoots. And I very, very quickly had a lot more shoots scheduled. At that point, I knew from my clothes work how to pick good photographers, build up a portfolio for trade, and I actually very quickly started booking paid work and just kind of launched a career. Now, I struggled for a long time. I had feast and famine cycles until I figured it all out, which is definitely a different story, but it was incredibly exciting for me. That's not to say it was always easy. At that time, obviously, I was 18 at that point. I waited until a few months after my 18th birthday. I was still living with my parents, who, I was raised very conservative Christian. My parents were very conservative Christian. I'm still not sure how, but they found out what I was doing. And that blew up quite badly, and I actually moved out the next week.
Oh, wow.
And about a year later, things came to a point where I didn't speak with my parents for over a year. And so it was a beautiful, empowering, healing, transformational journey. And it did cause complications, but it also gave me something in my life that meant enough to me that I was willing to step up and put a foot down and to set boundaries with my parents, which obviously was painful and not easy, but was something that needed to happen for that relationship to be healthy and viable long term.
Will you tell us a little bit more about that healing journey? How does the healing journey connect to the decision of doing nude photos?
Yeah. It's so interesting to talk about, because at the time I wouldn't have called it a healing journey. Right. I wouldn't have used words like transformation or healing, or I just wasn't there yet. But really what was happening was I was in a reclamation process. I was reclaiming my body. I was actually getting back in my body because I'd spent 18 years being very thoroughly disassociated. And so as I was learning how to pose, as I was paying attention to my body, as I worked through, I was really dedicated to being the best model I could be. And so first it was figuring out the basic full body poses, and then figuring out facial expressions, and then things like, what do I do with my limbs? What do I do with my hands? What do I do with my feet? And so I systematically worked through my entire body, and it got me back in my body. And, posing, a lot of nude art is very emotive work, especially for me. The emotive side is, I love doing highly emotive work. But at the time, because of the way my childhood was, because there was some verbal abuse and there wasn't a lot of space in my childhood for me to express emotion, I actually had what's called flat affect. I didn't show a lot of emotion on my face. I was pretty much a blank slate most of the time. And what I did show was pretty performative. It was, oh, this authority figure wants to see this on my face. And so when I started modeling, I actually had to learn how to show genuine emotion, how to bring subtler moves and subtler emotion back to my face. And it actually freed me up to start feeling more and more emotion and to process it, because in the photo shoots, I actually had this opportunity where I could move to show what I was feeling. And I brought these emotions that were coming up as a result of whatever was going on in my life and whatever emotions I was starting to reclaim during that particular shoot with whatever the photographer wanted to portray, I'd actually be able to process those through the posing and have a place where I could actually be witnessed as I was truly myself for the first time in a very long time.
Wow.
And that's just one aspect of it. There are so many different layers to how truly healing and freeing and transformative this process was for me.
That is so fascinating, and I love how you described that. So it sounds like the disassociation was definitely disassociating from who you are, and the bridge to that was through your emotions. And the vehicle, I don't know, I'm just kind of coming up with the words. The vehicle was through the posing and the modeling itself. And does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's actually, I only just realized recently, for a very long time, for the first few years of my modeling career, every time I finished a shoot, I would come home and the first thing I wanted to do was call my boyfriend at the time. He's now my husband. I'd call him over and I just needed to be held, sometimes for hours. And I'd often cry. And I was always very clear. There was no trauma happening at these shoots. It was, I didn't understand what was happening. Now I have the framework as a coach to look at it, but it was a cleansing process. And I was doing such deep healing work on myself that I needed that time to then, I could process the emotions through the poses, but I also needed time to just really feel. And so after almost every single shoot for almost 2 years, he knew to be available whenever possible, and he would just hold me and let me experience what was going on from the work I was doing. And so this was all unconscious. I had no framework to understand what I was doing for myself, but I was doing very, very deep work.
Prior to you ever deciding to experiment with nude modeling, did you have any inkling or awareness that you were detached from your emotions?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I knew I was starting to become aware that there was something profoundly wrong with the life I was living. I understood that what was happening to me, what I was experiencing, was not right. I was starting to begin to understand that the anger and the sadness that I had been pushing down, there was a reason for that, and that it needed to be expressed. I don't think, for me, it was very normalized. I didn't grow up with people expressing emotion. I want to do justice to my family. Really, they did the best they could, and there were times where emotion was very much shown. When I say expressing emotion, love was always very present in my house, but there wasn't space for the heavier emotions. Like most people, my parents didn't really know what to do with or how to handle heavier emotions. So anger and grief in my family, it was always very explosive and dangerous or repressed. And we'd just swing back and forth between those. And I thought that was normal at the time.
So my next question, you may have actually just answered it, but where do you think that anger was coming from? Was it just from maybe having this lifetime of general repressed emotions, or was there something else that links to for you?
Yeah, I don't really want to get too deeply into that, actually, but there definitely were things that anger was coming from.
Okay.
I definitely experienced verbal and emotional abuse throughout my childhood.
Okay.
And I was very angry at the fact that I hadn't been given the opportunity for much of my childhood to really express my needs or my emotions or have a voice in the way I wanted.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. It sounds like through the modeling, you really not only have gotten in touch with your emotions, but you've actually opened up the door for you to experience your own voice, to have your own voice.
And I love that you say that, because I actually wanted to bring that up. I mentioned there are so many facets and layers to how the modeling was very healing and transformative. And I could really talk about them all day. There's no way we'll be able to cover them all in this podcast today. But one of the big ones really was having a voice, and not just through the work I was doing visually, but because as a model, I started to nurture a social media presence for business and marketing. And something I learned very quickly is people like to follow women who get naked on the internet. And I actually grew a following of fans, many of whom are still with me today. And I began to realize that we're actually in a stage in our society where men, they're not very interested in a nameless centerfold anymore. They want an actual relationship.
Nice.
And it's interesting to me because I've actually had, when I first, starting to nude model, I started to look into a lot of things I used to dismiss, and I changed a lot. Like, it was the first crack, and I ended up very feminist. I've been published in feminist anthologies now, very liberal, very spiritual, no longer identifying as Christian. There's been so many changes that this really cascaded into. But as I started identifying with the feminist movement, I remember very early on coming across somebody who said that there was no place for nude models and sex workers in the feminist movement because we're catering to men and catering to objectification and objectifying ourselves. And at the time, I didn't really have the words yet to express why that was so wrong. But when I say that nude modeling is healing for the women who do it, for the photographers who take the photos, and for the people who view the art, I really mean that. The proudest moment of my career was when I got an email from a fan who said that I changed the way he views women, and that because of my art, he's a better man.
Wow.
And that happens because when I first started marketing, I played with the idea of a persona, and I was like, fuck that. I can't keep that up. I'm just going to be me. And that's the best decision I could have made for myself and for the people who followed me, because what happens when people follow models online is they're not just seeing the boobs, they're actually getting the whole person. And they're seeing what she chooses to share with the world, whether that's stories about her daily life, whether that's sharing the political things that matter to her, whether that's stupid cat photos. They get to know us as a whole person, really, whether they want to or not, if they want to follow us and see those nude photos when we post them. And there's something very healing that happens in that. And I really think that a lot of the men who are seeking out nude photos, they're doing it because there's a need for the sacred feminine, and there's a need to be able to witness nudity and not have it tied completely to sex. Now, I think there's a place for sexual nudity, absolutely, even in art. I've done erotic and fetish work myself. I enjoy doing that. And I think it's important to remember that sexuality and nudity are not one and the same. You can have non-sexual nudity. And that's not something most men get to experience. Women, we have it all the time. We go into changing rooms together. We're used to being naked around each other. But men don't really get that.
I love that you're talking about this, because I agree. I mean, I think nude modeling, my experience is like nude modeling is different from straight pornography. They're not the same. They definitely have a different energy about them. And anytime I've ever seen a form of a nude photo or even just a nude painting. I mean, it's a different vibe. You know that it goes deeper than, let's have sex with someone, right? It's not just about the sex. And I think what's tied to it, especially in what you just talked about and what you're doing, is the message. And you are delivering a message of empowerment that I think is helping men to make that connection. Some might make it, on their own, but others I think are going to make it because you're tying it in with the work that you're doing. And so they're able to see the beauty. I mean, I saw some of your photos. It's like, wow, they're beautiful. And absolutely, you see your femininity, you see I want to say innate, what is it? I want to say a sense of voluptuous empowerment. So I think usually we use the word voluptuous with our bodies and certain body parts, but there's a form of empowerment that comes through the photos that you're doing that is very rich and whole because of the message that you tie to it. So I love that you combine the two.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And something that I feel is important to speak to. I really believe that sex work can be just as important and healing and transformative as the straight up art. I guess the viewers can't really see that I'm doing air quotes here because there really is a blurred line between art and erotic and pornography. We know it's hard to tell where that line is sometimes. And I think what's really important and what you touched on is the intention behind it.
Yes.
Because obviously there's going to be porn that is degrading and doesn't make the viewer feel great or people involved. And there's also going to be art nudes that are the exact same way. The intent is always what is going to turn it into something healing and transformational for the people involved and for the people viewing it. And I think that's really important to remember. And that's where, for me, the thing that I have always wanted to incorporate into my photos is strength. That's been the backbone of everything for me, even when it took me years before I could actually put that into words. And what I really want to be clear on is, for me, strength and vulnerability are paired. They have to be paired. You cannot have strength without vulnerability. And so you will see photos of me that are very vulnerable. I have even photos where I've done shibari images where I am tied up. And through all of that, there is this core of strength. And that, for me, has always been what I've wanted to be infused in my art. Now, when I was coaching models, I really taught them because, branding's hard as a model. How do you create a brand when you're doing nude art? What I taught them was to focus on, to find a word, like for me, it was strength, to find a word or two that was what they wanted to imbue and infuse all of their art with. And that's where it's going to stand out. It's going to be different because you have that comprehensive feel that's going to tie your portfolio together.
Nice. So I love that you've been able to parlay the modeling work into now helping other people, and you're doing coaching work with models. Do you work with people that are not models as well, or who do you work with?
Yeah. Okay. So to clarify that, I still do coach models, but it's not my main focus anymore. I've been coaching people my entire life before I had a word for it and before I was doing it as a business. And so when I realized, oh my gosh, there's actually this is a thing I can do as a career, it was like, it was made for me. But really what brought my attention there, and the reason, because I thought I was going to be a full-time model forever. I really planned to do it well into my 40s and past if my body was still capable. And unfortunately, in 2014, I was rear-ended. And my body became incapable of supporting full-time modeling much more quickly than I expected.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very painful. I ended up with severe physical injuries, a long-term brain injury, and lots of symptoms that many have, there are some I'm still dealing with now, and many took years to resolve.
Wow.
I actually, 2 years ago in 2017, had a surgery to help with some of the physical issues from that car accident.
Okay.
And at first I was told by my chiropractor that I had to take a month off work if I wanted to be able to return to modeling ever again. And when that month finished, I wasn't any better. And so I had to survive. I had to make money. And so I took some shoots part-time for the next several years. But it was very clear that a full-time career as a nude model was not going to be possible for me anymore. And that led to both a very dark night of the soul and simultaneously a journey to figure out who I was and discover myself and go back through all of that shit around what is my purpose, who am I, this thing that had been so healing and such an important part of my life. I was grieving it. And it's not that I couldn't ever model again. I'm still modeling now, but I was losing it in the form that I had known it. And that was very difficult. And it sent me on a journey of discovery that really kickstarted the spiritual path that I am on today. But at the same time, there was also a journey of, I need to make money. What the hell am I doing? And I've always loved to write. And so I started researching how to make money writing a blog. And that kind of led down the internet rabbit hole to where I somehow ended up on a webinar about how to make and sell a web course. And on that, the guy was like, okay, write down everything that you know well enough that you can teach people. And at the time, I was just like, shit, the only thing I know well enough to teach people is modeling. I was so, I had a severe, at the time they were still calling it a concussion. They changed it to long-term brain injury when I hit the year mark.
Wow.
I was so tunnel visioned. My brain wasn't working fully, and I forgot all of these strengths I had. And really just looked at, it was like I quit the job at the law firm to become a nude model when I was 18. Nobody's ever going to hire me. I have this huge gap on my resume. And the only thing I'm good at, again, air quotes here, this is what I thought at the time. It totally wasn't true, but I felt that the only thing I was good at was making money as a model, because it's possible to make a full-time career out of nude modeling. And yet so many models really struggle at that. And I did for a long time, but when I finally broke through, it became very easy and I started teaching all my friends. So I started trying to put together a web course, and then I found out coaching existed, and I kind of dove in head first and discovered that I was a very, very good coach, but where I knew how to make money as a model, I didn't quite know how to make money as a coach. So I got to go through ups and downs for the next several years, but throughout all that, I was teaching my clients how to make money as a model, but what kept coming back in and what I realized I really, really loved were these pieces around, okay, if you're making money as a model, your body is your income. You have to take care of yourself. You have to set boundaries, not just with other people, but with yourself. And working with models around confidence and body image and self-esteem and all of these transformational inner game things that I bring into my coaching now, I actually realized how passionate I was about those by going through this process where they became the bulk of what I was teaching my clients. And I was looking for, how can I make videos with all the business stuff so I don't have to keep repeating that, and I can just focus on helping these women with their confidence and the way they see themselves, and improving self-care and deepening their spiritual journey. And that's where things really evolved to where I am now.
Let me ask you, since you touched on the knowing who you are piece, who is Eleanor Rose?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Oh, I love that you asked me that, because it's actually, that's been going through a transformation recently as what my purpose is has really been evolving or not, my purpose has not evolved, my awareness of it and what I feel like allowed to glimpse of it right now has been expanding, right? I feel like I have this deep inner knowing of who Eleanor Rose is. And at the same time, it's so very difficult to put it into words. I think to put it into one very short sentence, what I feel on a deep core level is I am a healer. Just by nature of who I am and showing up fully as who I am a healer. My presence heals. And I think that's part of why my art, why I can bring so much healing to my fans, to the people who view my art, because I'm committed to showing up fully in those photos, and that healing aspect of myself translates.
I think one of the things you touched on too about how it's still evolving for you is it's so key for us to all know that we're all evolving. And I know even when I have those moments where I'm like, okay, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing, you know, that next thing in life is also just beginning, which means that when I'm done learning that next lesson in life, well, who I am and what I'm doing is going to also evolve with it. So
absolutely.
So I think that's key for everyone to know, is that as long as we're alive, we're always in process. We're always going to be shifting and learning and growing. And it's that awareness piece that you touched on earlier too, that helps us to go, oh, that's right. Okay, this is part of it, which means I'm maybe not always going to fully have an answer for this. And other times I will. And then it may still change at some point, even after I think I have it all figured out, right? So
absolutely. It's so important to remember that. I had a conversation with a client a few weeks ago where she was telling me, she's like, I just want to know what my purpose is, what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. And I told her, I'm like, I get that. And you don't have to figure out the big picture. You just need to figure out your next step. You need to figure out what is right for you right now. Yeah. And that's something I've had to learn so many times in my life, because I thought modeling was my purpose. I thought I'd be doing it forever. I thought coaching models was my purpose and that I'd be doing it forever. And then I had this deep sense that actually doing this women's empowerment work was going to be where I'd end up. And for 3 years, every time I was like, okay, maybe I'll go over and do this now, universe was just like, not yet, wait. Not yet, wait. And so there was this weird, like this yearning to move to the next piece, and this piece of me that did not want to give up coaching models at all, because I love that community and that tribe. And I will always be providing resources for them. And I think I needed that time to figure that out. And then when it was time, it was like the floodgates opened. The universe was just like, okay, you wanted this, I'm throwing you in the deep end. And so now I'm working as a women's empowerment coach. And I keep having to remind myself, one, I only need to know my next right step. Just keep doing the next right step. And two, don't get too attached, because as much as I love this and want to be doing this forever, I don't know what the universe has in store for me. So I'm going to help as many women as I can through this, and trust that no matter what the universe has in store and what I end up doing, I'm always going to be healing people. I'm always going to be working in women's empowerment. The core is always going to stay the same, but the mechanism, the delivery system, I'm not getting attached to that, because I have been through too many changes to not have learned that lesson, really.
I totally hear you. I feel like this comes right back to deciding to do that one nude photo shoot. And then what I hear you saying is that you gained so much freedom from that. And that's that detachment piece, right? Of detaching from, oh no, I can't do that. I'm a good Christian girl, I can't. And then allowing yourself to have the freedom to, well, what if I just tried it? What if I just explored it? And all this other stuff that's unfolded for you. And now knowing that as you have even moved beyond that, while you still might do it, but now your focus maybe is more coaching and the empowerment piece, is that continuing to remain in that space of, okay, this is what I do, but I'm going to continue to have that detachment from, you know, whatever else it means or where it's leading to next, because that's allowing you to be in that flow and continue to move forward as new things are revealed to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, when I was in that car accident in 2014, I didn't just have to deal with the physical issues and the resulting depression, the anxiety, the trauma, the brain injury, the PTSD. I really did go through this process where I grieved the loss of who I thought I was and what I thought I was doing in my life. And I didn't fully learn the lesson then, but I definitely have learned to not wrap up who I am in what I do. And I think that's really the core of what you were just saying is,
Yes.
and where I'm very distinct, like I am a healer. That's never going to change. That has been who I am my entire life. And it is such a deep core aspect of who I am. It's not all I am. I just realized I never gave you a complete answer on who Eleanor is. I don't know, complete goofball, nerd, healer, transformational catalyst, author, model. I'm a lot. Eleanor is a lot. But
Eleanor does a lot. What does Eleanor value?
Oh, I love this question because Eleanor has been trying to figure this out. I'm going to stop talking myself in third person, but that was fun. I feel like every few years I come back and I sit with this question again, and every few years it's evolved. And over the past few weeks, I've come to a realization that I actually need to very soon set aside some dedicated time to do this practice again. What's been becoming very clear recently is, you know, as I have played with my values over the past few months, because I do a daily practice of choosing a word for my day that I'm going to embody. I have a word for every month, and through my journaling practices and my spiritual practices, I do stay on top of what are my values, what's emerging. What's been very, very clear is I'm moving into a place in my life where integrity is absolutely crucial. And had I been asked, I always would have said integrity was important, but it wasn't necessarily something that made the list of my top values. And now I'm at a place in my life where it is everything, to the point where since January, I've been going through a very interesting process where, you know, when we're healing ourselves of deep core wounds, there are layers, right? Actually, recently somebody described it as a spiral, which I really like. And so as we move on our spiral of our journey, we'll come back to these places and be invited to heal things even further. And the place I have been in since January is one where anything that is even slightly out of integrity in my life feels like a massive trigger, feels like it is so glaringly obvious and so glaringly crucial I fix it, even if it's tiny, even if it's just that my room isn't clean, or I own a book that shouldn't be in my house anymore, or you know, some of the things that emerged were my husband and I still had certain patterns in the way that we connected. And I had certain patterns in the way that I was connecting with him that I hands down absolutely could not tolerate. And so that's where the work that I do is so important, because for, you know, the past several years, my life has been about doing the healing work, being aware of what's going on in my body, in my mind, in my spirit. I was able to see this, and it wasn't just, oh my God, I've become a crazy person. I'm crying over nothing all the time. I'm yelling about nothing. It was, oh, wow, okay, there are some things that I'm being shown really need to get cleaned up.
Wow.
Yeah, so integrity is a huge, huge value for me right now. And I think will be the rest of my life. That feels like one that's really coming home.
Well, I love that you talk about that, because I think that is really key for all of us to be mindful of how we're in integrity with ourselves and our own values. And I want to say that first and foremost before the external things of our lives, which are also important, but
yes,
in integrity with, like, who am I? And am I actually being that person? Or am I being someone else? Maybe I know who I am, but I'm showing up as someone else. And we don't need to have shame about that. Like, it's all part of this, I want to call all of it a healing journey. And so I love that you're mentioning that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true what you're saying, because, I mentioned a lot of external things, but it really did start with what was out of alignment in myself. One of those big things is, as my coaching practice has evolved and I'm really working with women with anxiety and depression around self-care practices and boundaries. And obviously it goes so much deeper than that, but that's the first steps. Self-care, I mean, it's how I came back from, the car accident I was in. It's how I came back from after that car accident. The next few years, I was spending more days in bed than out of it. Some of that was in pain, but a lot of it was just I was too depressed. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the motivation. I saved my life through learning self-care practices that worked for me and learning how to take this idea everybody's bandying around about self-care, but it's mostly just those Instagram or aesthetics bath bombs. And believe me, I love a good bath bomb, but it's so much deeper than that, right? Yeah. Self-care is comprehensive. It's learning how to forgive yourself, how to love yourself, how to listen to your body and do the things that you don't want to do, but you'll thank yourself for later, as well as giving yourself space to relax, giving yourself permission to, if you're going to have a breakdown, if you try to get on the computer and work today, take a day off. You clearly need it. It's all of those. It's the permission and the discipline. And I came to a place in January where I realized I was still practicing all of the tools that I teach. But if those are the tools that I'm teaching, I need to be practicing on a deeper level than what I bring to my clients. And so as I went through this shift, I actually took my self-care journey to such a deeper level where I'm spending an hour or two or more per day on my self-care, on my meditation, on everything that's going to help me help my clients, as well as just help me help myself, because it always comes down to, it will help me help my clients. It'll help me show up more fully for friends and family and loved ones. And if that was my motivation, it wouldn't work. It has to be for me, hands down, first off.
That is such a good point. Okay, so I want to go back to, I want to revisit the client question, because I don't know that, I think we went in some different directions there. Who are your ideal clients?
Yes, thank you for asking. It's so funny because, we started off with the nude modeling and kind of journeyed here. So I work with women with invisible illnesses who are struggling with anxiety and depression, and I help those women feel happy and successful without compromising their health.
Nice.
So my ideal clients are women who are in pain and tired and beating themselves up because they can't get enough, air quotes again, done during the day. And they're spiraling downwards. And I intercept that and I help them learn to spiral upwards.
Nice.
And I help them learn the tools they need to actually listen to their bodies, set healthy boundaries, get themselves out of this crisis, but then also move past it and continue their healing journey, even past the point when they're working with me. I give them tools so that they know how to keep learning and keep healing themselves. I was doing some research for a workshop that I'm leading next week, and I knew that invisible illness was incredibly common. I've dealt with invisible illnesses myself, both before and after the car accident when they escalated. Most, if not all, of my female family members and some of the male family members have invisible illnesses. And most, if not all, of my friends too. They're so incredibly prevalent. I wasn't actually expecting the statistics to match that because, as most people with invisible illnesses know, it's hard to get doctors to take us seriously. And so for the statistics to show that 1 in 2 people have a chronic condition and 96% of those chronic conditions are invisible illnesses, and it also saw that women are statistically more likely than men to have invisible chronic conditions. That really means that most women are walking around tired, in pain, and beating themselves up. And
Wow.
that's so sad to me. And it makes so much sense because we really do live in a society where we're not taught to take care of ourselves. We're taught this Protestant work ethic that doesn't work anymore, if it ever did. And we're running ourselves into the ground and making ourselves sick. And so, I teach women how to break that pattern.
Nice. And so breaking that pattern, does that help them develop tools for being able to stay where they are, or to create something new and shift out of it? Or could it vary?
Okay, so if I understand what you're asking, it's really being able to shift out of where they are. Okay. Now, if they want to if you're talking about like what they're doing in their life, if they want to stay with that, that's great. But I work with women the first step is just get them out of crisis. You know, usually not removing the depression and anxiety, but getting them to a point where it is well managed and not controlling their lives. But then we really move so much. That's the first step out of 5 in my system, is getting out of crisis. And so a lot of what I do with women is I help them break through that patriarchal bullshit, all of these roles that we have as women in society. And I know men have roles too. And what I know and can speak to and work with are the women's roles, where we have these beliefs about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a daughter or a mother or a sister or a wife or an employee, a boss, a business owner. And every single role we identify with comes with hidden beliefs and habits and patterns and stories that we buy into, unless we're willing to sit down and do the work and look at what those are and rewrite them.
Right.
And I started that work when I was working with models to go, okay, you're buying into the starving artist myth. It's a myth. It's total bullshit. Let's break you out of that. And now I bring that I realize that can work with any role. And so I really help women do this work that came from the unconscious work I was doing for myself, because I did hit a point in my journey where I was just like, okay, I need new frameworks. And I dissected over the course of a few years every single belief I had about myself. Anytime I caught myself saying I am this, or I can't do this, or I'm not, I took note of that. And I really did this process of, what do I believe? Who do I believe I am? And so that's such a huge piece of what I work with women on, is who do they think they are? And is that empowering? Is that serving them? And if not, let's keep the pieces that work and take the pieces that don't and rewrite them into something that works better for them. Because really, when it comes down to it, one of the basic exercises I have women do is first do a prompt where I give them a prompt. It's just the words, I am a, fill in the blank, with as many things as you can think of. And then I have them fill in, because I am a, whatever it was they wrote, I write whatever comes to mind. And you get things like, because I am a daughter, I will never be enough. And I help them rewrite that to look like things like, because I am a daughter, I am cherished and loved. Now, this isn't saying that their experience of never having been enough as a daughter isn't true. I felt that very deeply myself. That's the reason I bring this one up as an example. But our truth And even if we've been flat out told that by our parent, it doesn't mean that's the story we have to hold on to, because it can simultaneously be true that we have never felt enough and they have told us that we're not enough, and they deeply love and cherish us. Right. It's up to us to decide which story we're going to buy into, and that affects how we show up in our relationship with them. My relationship with my mom shifted hugely and is so much more healthy, and the way she treats me has changed since I did this work. And so it's not dismissing those wounds, it's looking at them, and I work with them to heal those wounds and work through them and release the charge as we write what the new story they want to go into looks like.
Wow. Eleanor, I'm so grateful that you came here today and that we've been able to hear about your journey and how you help people with these invisible illnesses. And like you said, first, just trying to calm down the chaos. I don't think those were your words, but basically help with the immediate needs, and then help them shift into such dramatic statements about who they think they are and who they can now choose to be. And I think it's really powerful. And I think it's something that every person alive truly would benefit from taking time to do that, and working with someone who can help set them free and help them have more of that flow in their life.
Absolutely.
What is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they'd like to connect with you after this?
Right now, the best way to get a hold of me would probably be through email. So my email is reclaimyourgoddess@gmail.com. This year, I will be in the process of creating a new website for my coaching. But as this process where I've been doing this work with women for years, but the actual switch to focusing on the empowerment is still relatively new from last November, when the universe opened up those floodgates, like I was saying. I don't have a website dedicated to my coaching yet, but people who are interested and want to know more are very welcome to go to my website at eleanormodel.com. That's www.eleanormodel.com. And what I have there is information about my modeling as well as my coaching. And I believe I have some information on the work I've done as an author there as well. My blog is certainly on the website. And so it's a really good place to go if you're interested in seeing what empowering nude art looks like, or if you're interested in learning about what I offer women, what I do for women, the coaching that I do. And if you're interested in reading more along these lines of what I've been sharing today. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, wonderful. So eleanormodel.com. And for anyone who's not seeing it, it's ELEANORMODEL.com. And I thank you again so much for being here today, Eleanor. Are there any final words you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest messages that I really want to impart to my clients, that's been a huge part of my journey and that I think is so important for everyone, is just, you are enough. You are enough.
I love that. So thank you so much for being with us today, Eleanor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening today. If you found value in this episode, be sure to rate and review it on iTunes and subscribe so you can continue to be inspired and feel supported on your journey forward. Remember that every day truly is a new day. The more you practice saying yes to yourself, being open to your life's gifts through your lived experiences, the more you find yourself in the rhythm and flow of life. And that's just the beginning of how much more beauty is ready to unfold for you. Subscribe to the Every Day is a New Day show on iTunes and connect with me after the show over on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, where I also go live with many of my guests on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Or follow the show on Instagram at Every Day is a New Day Show. Let me know what you're taking away from today. I'd love to know. I'm your host, Kim O'Neill, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.